So in May of 2018, I came across a gentleman who was calling himself Veteran Hiker on Instagram, also known as David Rendon, an Army veteran. And I also realized that he was a part of a nonprofit that I sit on the board of called Merging Vets and Players. And I was really touched by what he was doing. You know, he was using hiking as a means to heal. I reached out to him and I asked him if he wanted to go hike a mountain called Mount Baldy with me, 10,000 feet, and it's in Southern California. And he instantly jumped at the opportunity. And when we got out there, he was just so moved by it. You know, he came to me and he cried and he was like, people have no idea how hard this is for you. You know, they see the pretty picture of you standing on the summit, but they have no idea the amount of effort that goes into this. I later decided that I was going to surprise Veteran Hiker with the opportunity to climb the highest point in South America with me, all expenses paid. I was going to cover his flights, his gear, and then the climb itself. And I went to that nonprofit, Merging Vets and Players, to their weekly session and got up in the center of it and said, David, will you climb Aconcagua with me? And he cried and cried and cried. And you know, his 14-year-old daughter wrote me the nicest message and said, you know, my dad really looks up to you and you have no idea, you know, what this is going to mean to him. January 17th rolls around, I fly to LA to pick up David, and we're going to go to Argentina to climb Aconcagua, standing at 22,841 feet. And in the airport, David looks at me and he just cries again. And in that moment, I realized that this climb wasn't going to be the most important thing to me. It was going to be what this experience meant to David. You know, when people asked me what I was most looking forward to, it wasn't another summit. I couldn't wait to see David's facial expression the moment he saw Aconcagua for the first time. And that really set the stage for it. The climb actually started on January 20th, and it required us to trek in 30 miles. And we're talking 30 miles through hell. Dusty, steep, unstable, 108-degree weather terrain. It was absolutely awful. There is nothing in the world that I despise more than heat, mainly because my leg won't stay on. And it's just a long trek. The first couple of hours we couldn't get my leg to stay on in the slightest. Eventually had to resort to dunking my prosthetic and my liner into the river to make it cool down. This morning, kind of learned our lesson from yesterday. It is much cooler early off, so we're gonna step off here shortly. Feeling good, though, all things considered. Looking back on yesterday, had great conversation, really got a feel for one another. You know, did some high points, did some low points, things to work on. But otherwise, I'm excited. Slept like shit with my negative 40-degree bag, but I'll be the happy one up high. I was not happy. I can climb, but trekking and hiking is just miserable on me. So we got to base camp. Everybody seemed happy, content. The following day, January 24th, was actually my birthday, conveniently scheduled on the same day as a rest day. So I got some time to, you know, be able to go around base camp, meet everybody, hear stories, interact with people from all over the world. Birthday beer! I got birthday beer, tuna fish, energy chews, and a hair tie for my birthday so far. Doing pretty good. Oh.
The rest is tuna salad and gummies.
That's awesome.
That was from my lunch yesterday.
That really makes me happy. And then, like, those moments at base camp and at these different camps are some of the just where you learn the most. You know, where else are you going to meet some crazy, quite literal dirtbags on the mountain and, you know, swap stories? Some of these people can, you know, recognize me off Instagram and knew who I was and came running up and were just so excited that I was on the mountain with them. And it's just a crazy special feeling.
He's a warrior. So proud.
You know, David was super nervous, you know, going into the unknown, and I get on him because he really was. You know, it's not like he had any idea what to expect. He made the very bold move of accepting my offer, but 23,000 feet of a mountain is nothing to play with. Good undertaking on him. I really commend him for that one. Like he threw himself head first into it, and I love it. But you know, we really did. We cruised. We all hit high points and low points. You know, mine really consisted of just making sure that I stayed cold enough that my leg would stay on. David didn't really struggle with altitude. He struggled more so with like finding a rhythm. Me, I have my weird, bizarre rhythm that makes sense to nobody else, and I just go. You know, I get into my mindset and tune everything out and soak it all in. But it's an art form to be able to do that. So David really struggled initially with being able to get into the swing of things, and it's uncomfortable. You can't breathe. Your body's eating itself. You're fighting yourself to be able to even to move at all. So good on him. But you know, we got to camp 1 with no problems. Camp 2, we got to with no issues. Camp 3 got to the point where we were getting up there pretty high. All you want to do is you want to beat yourself up at altitude. You're not moving fast enough. Your body's not cooperating. You're nauseous. Your head hurts. You're almost like delusional and thinking about things that don't even matter. Almost looking for any excuse just to fucking stop.
Yeah, buddy.
But once we made it to Camp 3, you know, he sat there and he cried. He was like, oh my God, I'm part of the 1% that's been to, 20,000 feet.
Highest I've ever been.
Mating call.
Lo and behold, we have another 2,841 to go. But we got to Camp 3, and we decided that we were going to take a nap, basically, and then we were gonna go for it in the morning. So on February 1st at 3 o'clock in the morning, freezing cold, got out of our tents, drank some hot tea, and put our headlamps on, and we just went. And we walked for right about 4 hours, and I got to the point where I almost had frostbite on my residual limb and needed to get into the sun, needed to get to a jet boil, needed to get warm fast. And that kind of was the reality check, I think, for everybody. That you know what, we're playing with something serious. But that's what I like. I like those oh shit moments. Because in those moments, when you're close to death or you're scared, it's when you feel the most alive. And I think those are the moments where you actually feel what's going on around you. You feel the colors, you feel the terrain, you feel the sounds, you feel everything. So yeah, and then I just decided that it was go time. Get the leg back on and keep going. And we hit a long traverse, but luckily it was the most unreal day. Not a cloud in the sky, there was no wind. Perfect. Couldn't have got a better summit day ever. And it was just a matter of, I don't know, tricking yourself into doing it, I guess. And so at about 2 o'clock in the afternoon, we got to a point where we were about 3 hours out, and it was to a point now where it wasn't a traverse. It was the part where we've got like another 1,000 feet of gain, and it's steep. You're going over now ice and snow, but you're also almost bouldering. You're scrambling over these just obnoxious, gravelly terrain. And David says, I'm turning around. And Christopher says, no, you're not. No, you're not. You got until 5:30, keep walking. And I think he hated both of us in the moment, which was hard to deal with because I didn't want that to happen. But he did. I'm so proud of him. He kept fighting, and I kept tripping over everything on the way up. And I think the most special part of the climb for me was watching that perspective shift, watching that attitude change in David. He came up over the top of the summit, and it was a different person. He was full of energy and full of life, but it was like he had that realization of, oh fuck, I actually did it. I actually did it. Even when he thought he couldn't. Like, to see the amount of pain and defeat in his eyes at 2 By 5:30, when we were actually at the summit and taking pictures and waving the American flag and hooting and hollering, it was pretty surreal. That was it for me. That was my Aconcagua. You know, Christopher made the comment, you know, was this climb super special to me? Yes, they all are, but there wasn't that like definitive thing for me. David was the definitive thing for me. Like, introducing him to big mountains and to suffering and reminding him of what he could do, that was my Aconcagua. That was my summit.